So you're thinking about upgrading your computer's storage. Awesome. But if you've started looking around, you've probably run into this alphabet soup of terms. Two of the biggest ones you'll see are M.2 and NVMe, and honestly, the way they're talked about can be super confusing. Today, we're going to cut through all that noise and make it simple.
Okay, let's just get right to it. The question that's on everybody's mind is pretty simple. NVMe or M2? Which one should you get? Which one's actually the better drive for your PC? And, it seems like it should be a really straightforward choice. And here's the big reveal right at the start. That's actually the wrong question to be asking. The truth is, M2 and NVMe aren't really enemies. They're not competing with each other. They're actually two totally different things that are designed to work together. And figuring out how they do that, that is the key to unlocking some serious speed for your computer. So to really get this, we've got to break it down. Let's start with the first piece of the puzzle, M2. What in the world is it? Well, think of this as the physical thing itself, the actual shape of the drive. M2 is what we call a form factor, and all that really means is it describes the physical shape and the connector of a solid-state drive. It's not about performance, it's just the shape. And as you can see, it's incredibly small and thin. People often say it looks just like a stick of gum, and it plugs right into a slot on your motherboard.
And this tiny design has some huge advantages. M.2 drives sit power, so they're really efficient. Their tiny size is a lifesaver in modern laptops and for those super clean PC builds where space is tight. And because they connect directly to the motherboard, you can just say goodbye to all those extra power and data cables cluttering up your case. And don't let that small size fool you for a second. These little guys can pack a serious punch, holding up to 8 terabytes of data.
Okay, so if M2 is the shape of the drive, then what is NVMe? Let's get to the other half of this equation. This is where we stop talking about the physical drive and start talking about how it communicates.
NVMe, that stands for Non-Volatile Memory Express, is a protocol. Think of it like this. It's the language your storage drive uses to talk to the rest of your computer. So here's the key thing. M2 is the physical slot, and NVMe is one of the languages that slot can speak. And it's a language that was built from the ground up for the incredible speeds of modern flash memory.
To really get why NVMe is such a big deal, you kind of have to look back a little. Before 2011, our storage drives used older languages, or protocols, like SATA. And SATA was great, but it was designed for old, slow-spinning hard drives. Once super-fast SSDs came along, that old language became a bottleneck. So NVMe was created to just smash through those old bottlenecks, creating a new standard that could keep up with the demands of today's technology, like AI and machine learning.
So we have the shape, that's M.2, and we have the communication language, that's the protocol. Now let's put these two ideas together, because this is where you're going to have that big aha moment where it all just clicks. And this right here, this is the key to understanding everything. That M.2 slot on your motherboard can actually use 2 different types of drives. On one side, you've got M.2 SATA drives. They use that slick, modern M.2 shape, but they speak the older, slower SATA language. On the other side, you've got M.2 NVMe drives. They use the exact same great shape, but they speak the new, lightning-fast NVMe language. And they do it by connecting through a high-speed PCIe lane, which is basically a direct data highway to your computer's brain, the CPU.
So what does that mean for real-world speed? Well, an M.2 drive that's using that older SATA language, it's going to hit a wall at about 6 gigabytes per second. Now, don't get me wrong, that's still way, way faster than an old spinning hard drive, but that number is a hard ceiling. It can't go any faster.
But what happens when that M.2 drive starts speaking NVMe? Whoa, the speed absolutely skyrockets, typically hitting over 20 gigabits per second. We're talking more than 3 times faster. This isn't just a small bump, it is a massive, massive leap in performance, all thanks to speaking a better, more direct language.
Okay, so the tech is starting to make sense, but the real question is, right, which drive should you actually go out and buy? So let's get practical and break down how to choose the right one for you. When you're at the store or shopping online, it really just comes down to these 4 things. Let's start with price. NVMe drives used to be way more expensive, but honestly, that gap is closing fast, making them a much more compelling option. The biggest factor, though, is compatibility. You've got to check your motherboard. If it's an older board, it might only support M.2 SATA. For that top-tier NVMe speed, you need a modern board with a specific M.2 slot that uses those PCIe lanes. Now for capacity, it's pretty much a tie. Both types come in similar sizes. And finally, speed. If you're just doing general web browsing and office work, M.2 SATA is totally fine. But for anything really demanding, NVMe is the hands-down winner. So let's talk more about that speed. We've been throwing around these big numbers, but when does that massive performance jump from NVMe actually make a difference you can feel? What does it mean in the real world?
Oh man, this is where NVMe really gets to flex. For gamers, it means those agonizingly long loading screens get slashed. For video editors and graphic designers, you're talking about rendering and moving gigantic 4K files in just a fraction of the time. In the big leagues, it's absolutely essential for things like AI, machine learning, and data centers that need instant access to mountains of information. So the bottom line is pretty simple. If what you do involves moving around huge files, an NVMe drive will be a complete and total game changer for you. So there you have it. The next time you see M.2 and NVMe, you'll know exactly what's going on. M.2 is the shape, NVMe is the language. And the question isn't which one is better, it's which language does my M.2 slot need to speak? And that leads us to a final question to think about. NVMe's solved with speed problem for today. But as our games and our files get even bigger, what comes next? What's going to be the language of speed